Offlane? Hell yes.
Offlane, the associated heroes and the role itself, happens to be in a really good spot right now in the current patch of 734C, with a lot of heroes finding themselves on offlane being particularly strong and benefiting greatly from the aggressive approach in regards to kills netting more value than in the previous patches. Playing offlane correctly is ripe for gaining MMR. This video will throw 5 tips your way to improve your overall offlane gameplay, so that you too will be able to reap the benefits of the strength that Position 3 currently holds within the metagame of Dota 2. If you like videos such as this, please consider a thumbs up on the video and a follow. Your support and interest is what makes these weekly videos possible. Offlaning is a dual lane. This is something everyone is aware of. Due to this, however, it's insanely important that we pay attention to our lane level in particular, as well as the hero composition we have on our side, as well as that of the enemies. Offlane starts laying closer to the enemy tier 1 tower, meaning that positioning wise, your opponent is greatly favored compared to you, making it easier for them to last hit and deny on average. This is important because you want to try and get a level lead over the enemy support and core as fast as you're able to make the most of your chosen offlane hero. Therefore, when you're starting off on your offlane, try and figure out what level your composition becomes powerful and that of the enemy becoming scary. If you're playing Dawnbreaker Position 3 with a Witch Doctor for an example, you are so much stronger at level 2 because you'll have access to both your Starbreaker and Celestial Hammer, and Witch Doctor will have both his Maledict and his Casket, this combo only getting stronger at level 3. Likewise, try and interpret when to watch out for the enemy. If they have a power spike at the same timing as you, and they reach it faster, that could determine the entire lane outcome completely. Aggression is a stable mark of playing as a Position 3, and has been for many years at this point. Long gone are the days of suicide lanes being common, with the offlane often seen as being the most aggressive lane in the entire game, since its intention is to make life miserable for the enemy Position 1, and escalate from there. Because of this, it's very important that offlane players learn to apply pressure to the best of their abilities, and that of their hero they're playing in the game. If you're too lax and soft, the enemy Position 1 will get way too much free farm because you're letting him do so without getting punished. Or even worse yet, an active Position 1 might even sense passiveness in your play, out-aggress you and toss you out of the lane entirely together with your Position 4. No matter the hero composition you find yourself in possession of when you play Position 3, you need to find a way to assert dominance and attempt to shut down the Position 1 as early as you're able to. Using spells, being willing to hit and apply damage to the Position 1 and 5 overlasting is an absolute must. Once you've claimed control over the lane by method of aggression, you now have a complete free lane at your leisure, or have an enemy that's forced to do rotations in order to remedy the chaos you created, which is perfect. The holy grail of side laning, the majestic lotus itself. This one little flower is insanely important in so many ways, if you incorporate it correctly into your game plan. Spawning at every 3 minutes, Lotus can be grabbed by you or the Position 4 in order to have a potential burst of heal and mana that amounts to roughly 8.5 magic wand charges. Lotus lets you play stupidly aggressive, since together with it you'll now have 2 sources of burst healing and can really turn the tables on the enemy, since they might be thinking you have a lot less health and mana at your disposal than you actually do. Not to mention it can save your ally, since its effect is instant on cast. Also of note is that because Lotus is as desirable as it is, both sides will usually want to snatch it up at 3 minutes. This is a perfect opportunity for a Position 3 player to set up a kill in particular. The most common scenario is that the Position 5 player will head towards the pool, with the Position 4 player also trying to get Lotus at the same time, and the Position 1 will be last hitting meanwhile. This is the perfect opportunity for the Position 3 to make it an unfair 2v1 situation, and score a very easy kill plus a Lotus, which gives a large amount of sway for winning the lane. Make sure to contest Lotus, and if your Position 4 isn't grabbing it at 3 minutes, you really need to do so. Falling under the same umbrella term as aggression, what I mean with tempo in this case is to keep the aggression going, not stopping. Tempo is an insanely important tool in Dota 2, not just for position 3 either. But a lot of good offlane heroes find themselves in possession of skill kits that allow them to apply an almost constant source of threat to the enemy once they get going. Dawnbreaker is able to crash into the enemy globally and save allies. Slardar is able to slither with insane speed around the battlefield, and Legion Commander is able to rack up early, constant kills just to name a few. By winning our lane through aggression and reaching the peak of our heroes, which is usually a few items in, and anywhere from minute 15 to 20, we can keep the game going in a constant state of tempo. This method of playing leaves the enemy in an almost dazed position as players, because they hardly have any breathing room and aren't able to pick up the pieces and recover, because they simply don't have time for it. Almost as soon as they respawn, barely any time passes before you're showing up again and being a threat, either to their heroes, to Roche, or to their buildings. Learning to keep the enemy in a constant loop of recovery by playing in this tempo-like fashion will seriously improve your win chance of Dota 2. The enemy will have a hard time making a comeback if you never allow them any time to do so. Lastly, we need to cover the approach you take to a game. I already advocated both aggression and tempo previously, and while this certainly is very much what I do recommend, games rarely go the way we want them to. It's important that we're diverse and able to adjust on the fly, and this is where the approach comes in. As an offlaner, you need to understand what your spike is, and how you can make the most out of it with the individual hero that you're playing. That said, you also need to be able to understand how to adjust and approach a game that might not be going in a favorable fashion for you. Winning your lane and not winning your lane completely changes the dynamic of what you're capable of doing on your hero, but also what the enemy position 1 and 5 can do in return. You need to have a backup plan, and learn what the best approach is based on how your team is playing and how your enemy is doing as well. We want to preferably enter the previously mentioned tempo style, but in a game where we're behind, we might have to slightly slow our approach by some minutes. Or if you have players unwilling to play aggressively around you, recognize that you can't take 5v5 fights, and instead have to go for purely ganks or split pushing. Always have a plan for how you play your offlane when you're winning and losing, and be able to adjust on the fly from there. Offlane is in a really solid spot right now. These are just some of the things I would recommend for aspiring offlane players. Learn to play aggressive, seize control of your lane, and apply a constant amount of tempo and threat onto the enemy until victory is in sight. If you lean into this flow of playing offlane, you will see a very marked increase in success in your future Dota 2 games.